Okay, so everybody would like to welcome you to the Playground to Premiership podcast. I'm really looking forward to getting involved over the next few months with lots of different people in the world of football, and hopefully they give us their experiences from literally the playground to the Premiership. So, one of my first guests, and thank you, Cooke, for coming. I'll give you a very good build-up, obviously, on social media. Walsall's best ever talent, allegedly. But thanks so much for coming on.
No worries.
Is that true?
No.
Walsall's best ever talent?
I don't know, mate.
No. I mean, what I wanted to get to is, I'm going to tell a little story to intro it. I was obviously lucky enough to make the debut at Walsall, and when I come back, and it was the local pub that we all go to, I obviously thought I'd done all right, even though I hadn't got man of the match against Plymouth. And someone said to me, yeah, you might have done all right, mate, but you need to go and watch Stephen Cooke play. You need to go and watch him play for England at Lillishore. So that was the first time I heard your name. Yeah. I thought, right, who's this lad? I need to go and see what it's about, and actually travel with people to go and watch you at Lillishore. So obviously I think that was around 14, 15.
I would have been 14 or 15, yeah.
But one question I ask you, because I don't want to forget, so a couple of people have got questions in this. A parent, and I've done this naive at all, put forward and said, what advice could you give my child to get to where you got to?
At what age?
I mean, the person asking, the kid's about 6.
Just play. There's nothing else, is there?
No.
I don't see. Yeah, I find it quite.
Because what I want to ask you, being straight, is I talk about, and I don't talk about this in a bad way of, like, say, the parent trap.
Yeah.
If you want to call it, or you want to call it the race to the bottom. The things I like to speak to someone like you about there is, like, at 6, it is to play, and it is to enjoy it. To predict that is.
You would never have watched me play at 7 and 6 and said, right, in 10 years you're going to be a Premier League player. It's impossible, mate, to do that. You wouldn't have done it. So this is how I always look at me now. If I played in this modern, the way it is, you said to me earlier you'd be in an academy. I wouldn't.
Right. So why wouldn't you?
Because I'm not what they're looking for, and I'm also. I say I'm not what they're looking for. I don't want to sound arrogant here or anything. I'm not sure they know or see.
Well, so there's certain academies, whether that be the scouts or the coaches within it, see what they need to see. Yeah. In terms of long term. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's great now because I get it as well, by the way. I hear them say, he doesn't move very well. Yeah. Completely get it. Because I used to watch kids who I play against and I thought, he don't run like a footballer. You know, he don't move very well. I can do this, I can do that. So, but I was really small and frail. So definitely would have, struggled physically. Because the kids who play it now are a lot bigger than when we played. Yeah. So this is how I look at it. England under 9s, let's say. Me playing now, I don't get in it. I don't get in your England under 9s. Why? Because there's a shift in what people are looking for versus what they did then. So when we talk about, which I always loved, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I read a thing when I first started. This is years ago with Ace, and I think it's a Johan Cruyff method that he called it tips. Yeah. So you look at technical, he thinks technique's king. Yeah. Then intelligence, personality, and specifics. I remember head of academy years ago, locally around here, turned it on his head. Okay. He said, I'm looking for spit. I want specifics first, speed, power. Okay, yeah. And then I want personality because I can coach intelligence and technique.
No, you can't. It's impossible.
I found that really interesting. So
it's impossible.
Do you disagree? Do you think there's too much of a shift towards spit over tips?
Yeah, but I'm not. Yes, I think you need a middle ground, a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I can't. You definitely cannot coach intelligence. It's impossible. I don't care what whoever tells me they can. That's impossible.
So is that you got it or you haven't?
Yeah, you're born with that.
So what if you haven't got it?
You got no chance.
Have you got a chance if you build the other bits?
Yeah.
But you haven't got a chance to build intelligence?
No.
because I remember being on the pitch with you a few years ago, and we were talking, and it was thought provoking for me. Like, obviously, there's certain lads who might have ex-pro dads or relatives, and they have intelligence.
Yeah.
So whether that be passed on or be around people, what I find interesting, and we've had the chats about, is you might have a player who's got the S and the P, but he needs to play with the T and the I.
Of course, yeah.
That's what makes a team.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I could only play one way. So I was gifted. Technique come after for me. I was born with a brain, the actual brain to play the game. And then the technique was built by playing. And then as I got older, it just was maintained by playing. Not got any better. You just maintained.
So your advice, we talk pre-academy now and call it foundation. You're clear, even someone like yourself who had the youth career you did, is just play.
Just play, mate.
Enjoy it.
Just play, enjoy it.
What's your advice to the parents' support of that?
Drop them off and go home, or drop off and go somewhere else. I just think we coached, didn't we?
Yeah.
My session would run a lot better if the parents wasn't here. Obviously, there's safeguarding issues around that and things like that. But you get a lot of kids looking towards the parents and for advice, and they can't help you. You're playing, but parents do. I think put a lot of pressure on the kids or whatever. I mean, all I ever say to Stephanie is, look, just make sure you try. Sometimes you're travelling an hour to play. Parents are great and they're the most important people for the kids because they're never going to get there without them. They take them around, they pay for the extra sessions that they may do or may not want to do. I don't know if they're doing one-to-ones and stuff like that. But just drop them off, go and have a walk.
Playground to Premiership podcast. Welcome, Jimmy Walker. Good friend, obviously, in football. The way I looked at doing this, Wack, you've done lots of different podcasts compared to something like this, but you're involved in football DNA, which we'll get to in a little bit. I've been running Ace Academy now for nearly 5 years, so I work predominantly with lots of kids in the playground, working up through football. And one of the probably fortunate things I've had, even though I work at grassroots at lower level, is I've got lots of contacts or friends in football who've actually done that journey all the way. So what I looked at and I was speaking about is I wanted to do a podcast a little bit different, speak to people like yourself who've started and gone all the way through. So anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure everyone does, but I played with you at Walsall. You had a fantastic career. You're the all-time appearance maker, I think there. And obviously you moved on to West Ham, and you played at Colchester, but you played at Tottenham as well for a while. And obviously you were known as a superb keeper. So hopefully, like you say, you have done it where you've played from playground to Premiership. So it's a great place to start. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
No, my pleasure, mate. Thanks for inviting me.
Got a nice view here at Calder Fields.
Fantastic.
Golf and country club in Walsall. Who would have thought it?
Who'd have thought it, mate, yeah.
Yeah, so, in terms of yourself, Wack, take us all the way back to when you first started football. Sounds a bit cliche, but who got you into it? How did you start?
Well, fortunately, it's a long way back now, Tomo, so I'll have to...
It's longer than me, yeah.
It's a lot longer than you, to be fair. But no, I mean, just touching on your bits there, I mean, like I say, it's a great idea as well, what you're doing as well. I think it's people have got this idea of a perfect pathway through academies, through to the first teams, and playing for your country and getting through that way. It never really works like that. It may in some instances, and if it does, fantastic. But there's usually a lot of bumps and lots of peaks and troughs in the game. So if we can help anyone through this on this podcast, that'd be fantastic. But I mean, going back to me, I sort of started playing. I was the cliche of a kid. I always had a ball in my hands. I always had a ball at my feet. I can remember my nan, bless her, back in the day, she used to throw the ball at the wall and I'd dive on it and I'd save it. And little memories like that from as far back as I can remember. I think it was different sort of in my day. You never really played at 5, 6, 7 for a team. And I always remember, which for me was a really good team because my family, we lived in Mansfield, but there was big Forest fans as well as going to watch Mansfield Town as well. But being big Forest fans, it was a fantastic era. It was an era when Peter Shilton was in goal, Clough was in charge. They won the European Cups and all around that time. So I had a great upbringing for 2 or 3 years with a season ticket to go and watch Forest with my granddad and my dad. And I still remember it now, like even, great fond memories, just dropping my nan off in the shopping centre and we carry on to the game. And I go and watch Schultz flinging about around the goal. And I think that was my time that I really thought that's what I want to do, sort of thing. And something emulated in me there that sort of resounded in me that, yeah, that's sort of what I want to do. So it was a fantastic upbringing, just seeing Peter Shilton there doing that for Forest. And that was my main watch. And then I think after that, you start playing in the team.
What age did you start in the team?
It's really hard to remember. It must have been around 9 or 10.
So if you look at it now in terms of what I'm talking to you, like kids as soon as they're 6, you can be in year 1 in school, and as soon as you're 6, you're allowed to play in the league. Like you say, that pathway starts a lot earlier.
Yeah.
If you're saying you start at 9, you can obviously sign at 8 now for a pro academy for your 9th.
Yeah.
But to keep on your journey, you don't think you started till about 9?
I think it was 9 or 10, to be honest.
Yeah.
There was not a
and
lot.
Did you always want to be a keeper?
I think just from watching Shilton, my main focus was goalkeeping. It was always goalkeeping, but I love playing outfield as well.
Yeah.
I think I was fortunate. A lot of times, back in the day, some people got shoved in goal because they weren't as good or they weren't quite as mobile as others. But I was first with a hand up to go in goal, to be honest. I think it's changed a lot now. When you look at it now, a lot of people a lot of young lads especially want to be a goalie from a young age, and I was sort of on that sort of pathway. But I think when you're at a young age like that, sometimes you've got to be careful because it's all about playing in a team and playing. Yeah. I think it did me a massive favour not playing in a team and focusing on me just playing in a league and trying to do really well in a league for my team. I got to go and watch games. I used to go and watch Schultz, like I said, and that, and it was great. I used to play all the sports at the time, and I just had a lot of fun as a kid. I remember that, and it was never serious at any point really until you got that bit older for me. And we always had some good players from my school and lads who I knocked around with, and so we all sort of played together from probably 11 or 12 onwards, to be honest. And it was great. I mean, playing with your mates is a fantastic time. There's nothing better.
And I think that's the thing, sort of. Obviously, pathways are different, like you say. Hopefully, as I do these podcasts and I get to interview different people, no person's pathway will be the same. What was interesting, I actually thought you'd have come on here. I didn't know, genuinely. I thought you'd have told me you played outfield more, because not to buff you up to the viewers, but you're very good off your feet, I think, as a keeper. Now, obviously, that's sort of looking at for the keepers for a minute, because I think even as an academy, as Ace, sometimes the keepers don't get looked after as much as the players in grassroots. I thought you'd have said to me that you played outfield more, but you didn't. Just a question that someone put to us today is, when kids come in and they want to be a keeper at 6 or 7, and some do, would you encourage them just to specify being a keeper straight away? Or would you encourage them to play outfield as well? How do you think? Obviously, you're a goalkeeper coach. How do you think it would benefit to play both? Or, you know what, just singularly focus on being a keeper?
Do you know what? I think it benefits to do both, definitely.
Okay, everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Playground to Premiership. I have the pleasure of hosting today my former teammate, Ade Viveash. Welcome, Ade. Thanks so much for taking the time to come in to the podcast for us here at ACE. Obviously, just a little bit of an introduction. I actually, I've got to do this every little intro, because obviously where we are in Walsall, and which camera are we going for? We're going for that one. This is where I got to meet you, Viv. Obviously, young lad. I think it was 96, 97 year, when you were captain of Walsall, I think, and I was coming through, making my debut. As Pete said, who's hosting from Circle Media, this was the year where you scored lots of goals. But introduction in how I know you was Walsall. I was a young lad coming through. You was our leader, one of many leaders there, and obviously a centre-back who went on to have a really good career at Walsall and on to Reading. But obviously I've followed your coaching journey, and we've kept in touch through player WhatsApp groups and different meets, as everybody does in football. So it's an absolute pleasure that we've got someone with your background that can hopefully give people an insight into your journey and then the pathway of young players that you've had the experience to do. So thanks again for coming on.
how do you develop the best? So you look at Spain, don't you, in terms of Iniesta, Xavi, these incredible footballers, Messi, the size that they are, you'd never think, you probably think you could bully them, you can't get anywhere near them. But the reality is they would have had players coming through their system that were physically powerful, which we did at Chat, that enabled that talent to develop.
Right.
Enabled it. They had visionary coaches, obviously, and they had people that they saw the game. You know, you watch the Messi videos, you can see the talent at 7, 8 years old. You know, when you beat half the team, it goes with it. But we had players at 13 that would go to European tournaments and beat half the team and score goals. They never got through to the level of Messi or even close. But the reality is you do have sometimes to make big decisions. So I think you have to, as long as you get a general consensus, but you can lose talent. Chelsea, I can only comment on Chelsea, but every academy, you will lose talent by decisions being made that maybe a certain individual, and again, this is what I'm talking about, how you're putting children being entrusted into the hands of coaches or organisations or academies or not grassroots, whatever you may call it, to try and help them develop. There will always be questions around, is it a problem with the player or is it a problem with the environment, culture? Is the culture that you're asking for not being set by the staff? Question mark. Are the staff struggling to enhance what is being asked of the players? Because with all due respect to them, they haven't got the answers.
Yeah.
So you're in a very difficult situation all the way around. But culture, if you get the right culture, then it then gets driven by players. So in the end, you know, at Coventry, obviously the culture then gets driven by an elite group of senior players. And that's how you get management groups. But you can do that with young players. You can give them more involvement. And the way I did it as Chelsea was I got players to review each other.
Right, okay.
So obviously we would watch a game, we'd play a game.
And what age was this? Sorry.
This was probably 14, 15. You'd get them in with a flip chart. You'd had videos around the game we played on the Sunday. What do you think? No blame here. 2 left backs, 2 right backs, 2 centre backs, 2 centre backs. No, everybody's here to learn. Open environment. Say what you think. Now, in their words, you know, some of it was a little bit explicit. So there was some swear words at times, which you don't expect from 14, 15-year-olds, but they were trying to explain.
Yeah.
But because it was like, if you like, street versus street, boy brought up on the street in the cages playing football, boy brought up on the street, the way they talked, I could understand footballly, they understood each other with the words and the terminology. And that's the biggest form of learning. If you can be critiqued by your teammate, for me, I don't think I've seen anything,
with a constructive outcome,
anything as powerful as that. Still now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Playground to Premiership, episode 4 with Mick Halsall. Welcome, Mick.
Hello, Wayne.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Look, I've obviously spoke very highly of you on social. Our paths crossed, I think, about 24 years ago now, when we was at Walsall. Lots of people who are invested in football and locally will know of you. We'll go all the way back to your playing career, Mick, but probably most prominently in terms of the coaching roles you've had and youth player development. And as you can see here today, we're here at ACE, and obviously our passion and focus is youth development. So it's brilliant to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to it.
A word you just used, which is quite interesting in football or life, talent, you said.
Yeah.
What do you see as talent, and how do you nurture it?
Well, I funny enough, I used a couple of weeks ago with a few coaches suggesting hard work is talent. Being able to work hard is talent.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the talented players are always deemed to be the ones that work the hardest.
What's the saying that the guys built a brand slogan, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard?
Absolutely. You know, so, and I've always said, you know, it is something that you have to have. You cannot become a top player if you don't work hard. Now, there's different ways of working hard. There's working hard physically. There's ways of working hard mentally. There's ways of working hard, looking after your body, making sure that you do everything you can to be the best you can. So it's not just about the physical aspect. It's about, making sure, especially the way the game's evolved and young players now, the analysis that goes into them, especially within academy football, looking at your analysis and being able to, or looking at it, trying to look at it properly and critically of yourself, that's still working hard.
Yeah.
So the hard work is, it's more than just the physical aspect.
So in terms of 100% agree, it's like a non-negotiable, isn't it? It's an absolute non-negotiable if you want to strive to get to the top of the mountain, as we'd put it with football. And obviously you're head of coaching at a Category A academy locally. Do you look at boys, because I've obviously always looked at things of you got technical, you got game intelligence, you got personality, and then we say we got specifics. It was something, I don't know if it's still used at Albion, but when I was involved with Albion years ago, it was the tips method that they use, and other people look at spit and do it the other way. They look at strength and speed. How do you look at that, Mick? Because I think you said, which was nice when we met for a coffee a few weeks ago, say someone's got really good technique. Cookie's out there coaching somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cookie's got great technique and intelligence. And even though you might work on the other areas, do you still feel you can enhance the areas they're good at?
Yeah, I mean, technique, to be a top player nowadays, you've got to be technically efficient. If you want to just deem it efficient, you have got to be absolute top drawer. So that repetition, you're talking about, Ray, a little bit, repetition. As long as the repetition's the right repetition, So the technical ability, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
It's what you add to it. So you just mentioned a few names there. I always remember seeing Matty Fryatt when I first came into Walsall, and he was about 10, and we took him over, funny enough, to play against Foggy's team, and he had his back towards goal, and he flicked the ball over his head and someone else's head and cracked it in the top corner. And I said to Bill Jones, who used to work with him, I said, who's he? And he went, Matty Fryatt, he'll be a player, won't he? And he already had, but he was fantastic. And you could just see something in him at that age that you went, whoa, that's different. I'd never seen a young boy, in that capacity.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 5th episode of Playground to Premiership. Nathan Cantrill. Nathan's somebody who I met, I think it's about 7 or 8 years ago.
I think a bit longer.
Maybe a bit longer on the start of my journey. I'm not quite sure where you're on yours, but you're somebody I think we'd say we've gained a friendship. I think we've got mutual ground in lots of our ethos in football, and I've followed your journey with keen interest. So what I wanted to do is, obviously in Playground to Premiership, you didn't play in the Premiership, Nathan, but you're now head of foundation, which is under 7 to under 12s, a Category 1 Premiership club in Nottingham Forest. So welcome. Thank you for coming to join us at Ace Academy, all the way from Nottingham. We always like to start, Nath, in terms of, you can see around you now, we've spoke for hours today, me and you, but everyone has a passion for football. Where did it start? So Nathan Cantrill from Mansfield as a kid, where did your passion start and develop in football?
I'm from a council estate in Mansfield called Bellamy Road Council Estate, and playing on the top park, on top field. The garage is outside my grandparents' house. I can even remember snow. I've got a brilliant young memory of it snowing, so we were safe enough to slide and do diving headers and overhead kicks on the garages, which is all concrete area. So yeah, it was my love for football definitely came from around my grandparents' area where they lived and where I grew up.
What do you look for in a player now?
Well, I think now, because of how the game has changed, for me, the one thing you have to have now to play at the top level. So when we was younger, if someone was technically brilliant, they stood out a mile. Whereas now these children are coming to places like this, getting one-to-one coaches. They're on YouTube videos. They are constantly practicing ball mastery. So the standard and level of technical ability in academy football has gone up massively since when we played. What I will say is that is a minimum requirement now to play at the highest level, in my opinion. And I think the difference between the top talents now comes probably down to the psychological side of the game. So your psychosocial and maybe your physical, because the game's getting quicker as well. So the technical ability has to be there. But I think the real top players that get to the end game are the ones that have mastered all four corners.
So for those, and I think we've spoke about it, you're talking about the 4-pillar model for the FA.
Yeah.
So technical, physical, psychological, social.
Yeah, psychosocial is very linked.
Okay,
yeah.
so you're sort of saying, and I think Mick referenced this, that the technical levels compared to back then, it's just so much higher. So how, in terms of what you look for though, you say you look, if you go out there now, we stop this podcast and you're like, I'm going to have a scout, there's 50, 60, 70 kids, you'll be looking for technical as a minimum.
Yeah.
What are the other things when they're out on the grass you're looking for?
So one of the things our programme is designed to encourage and improve and guide is the ball mastery technique on the ball, being able to twist and turn and find solutions.
Thing now. I was waiting that we're doing this podcast and the kids were getting coached in the dark. They put the front lights on. I was waiting for loads of comments to say, why are they coaching in the dark? Is that like development?
Street games, the street lights have gone out.
The street lights have come on now, so let's keep going. Sorry.
No, so the technical side's massive, and the ability to play on both sides as well. That's a huge one. So in our programme, if we're doing a lot of things about ball contact, so we've
Can you talk about your skills square? Don't forget that.
The skills. So it's not technically a skills square what we do at Forest. What it is we have a method of how we coach. So we'll do 10-minute practices. So that's based on the cognitive learning and the forgetting things and coming back and revisiting it and things like that. That's what we're working on massively in our programme. But what we do have at the end of it is a spacing gap. So we'll have a 10-minute practice, real high energetic, loads of ball contact practice, and then we'll have a spacing gap. So the spacing gap is a 5-minute practice in between the 10 minutes where they will do, we've got a really good ball mastery combination skills program that our coaches are delivering weekly, which changes weekly. So in our sessions, hour and a half sessions, we will have 6 10-minute practices, and we will have, is it 6 10 minutes? Yeah, I'm terrible at math. 6 10 minutes and 6 5-minute practices on in our spacing practices. In those practices, that's where it is all player and ball. And again, like I keep saying, our programme is love the ball, so we need to make sure that our players are constantly on the ball.
And I got it horribly wrong when you talk about maths, trying to guesstimate how many touches people had, but you're actually even analysing the amount of purposeful touches players are having.
Yeah, so the way we see it, there's, for example, you look at games. If you're an under a 9 and under 10, and they're playing 7, 8, 9 aside on massive pitches, they're going to get less touches than they will if they're playing 3 aside and 5 aside. So at our club, in our games programme, we always play smaller formats because we want our players to have the ball.
Do you know what, Nate? You didn't mention, 8 years ago, and I beat you in that penalty strike challenge.
What I still wake up in the night. You absolutely
with that
hammered
Adidas
me on
ball that had the speed in it.
Yeah, you did.
But we met
that. I fancied my chances as well, so I was a bit disappointed.
We were a couple of them busy coaches, I think, and our journeys have crossed. We've kept in touch. For me, I just want to say it's been brilliant to see how you've progressed in football,
mate,
and see you have such a pivotal role now in a club and have like the passion, which I think bounces off the page, if I do a pun for a book. It's brilliant to see, and I think obviously you're going to have a lot more years in football, but thank you so much for coming all the way to Walsall for our 5th episode. I think parents, I always say with the podcasts,
I hope that people will take some things away from it. And I think there's so much that you've spoke about today in terms of on the pitch and off the pitch that coaches, players, parents will be able to take away. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, mate.
Make sure I'm on one of these next tours with you. Is that okay? And we look forward as Ace to hopefully coming across and seeing you all at Nottingham Forest very soon.
100%.
Thank you so
mate.
much, Nathan.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Top man.